have a movie that takes place, from what we've heard, 10 minutes before A New Hope, and yet you need to go and provide things that are new and things that are fresh. And that's easy to do with new characters, obviously, with which arguably aren't more than likely going to make it out of this film. More difficult to do when we are looking at vehicles and what they've done with the vehicles, whether it's the U-Wing, whether it's the TIE Striker, or the Imperial cargo ship. They've basically created a scenario where these three vehicles could easily not appear in the original trilogy just based off of the storyline. You know, if you look at the U-Wing, the Rebel U-Wing, that's more of a transport ship. There was no portion in any of the movies where you would go and utilize a transport ship in 4, 5, or 6. Even when you look at the Battle of Endor, I mean, they all came down on the Imperial shuttle because they had to get, past the Star Destroyer circling the Death Star 2. The TIE Striker, we've been told, and we've covered this on previous podcasts, that particular vehicle was for in-atmosphere battles, so in which case, again, you wouldn't see a vehicle being used. You wouldn't see that vehicle. And then we look at the Imperial cargo ship, which is really reminiscent of the shuttle Tidarian or the other shuttles that were put in to A New Hope in the special editions. Again, you can easily go and explain why these vehicles never showed up in A New Hope. The design on them are all really cool, though, and to me they all fit in with the Star Wars universe. They don't look, compared to what we saw in the prequels, the prequel films look like they all happened after the original trilogy. There's just no denying that. I'm okay with that, but there is no denying that. What they've done here in terms of the design team is really, really clever. One quick item of note, and then I want to get to some other parts of the podcast here because I've gone on long enough about the toys. But the Imperial cargo ship, which kind of looks like a turtle. When you fold the wings down, you saw it at the very beginning of the trailer of the second trailer. You see it over Jeddah, flying up and off the planet with the Star Destroyer that's up overhead, and the four wings fold up and down. If you saw any of the behind the scenes photos or followed any of the making of Rogue One, you will know that they repurposed. And if you listen to this podcast, they repurposed some of the First Order transport ships from The Force Awakens. And there's actually footage of, in the trailer, I personally believe, there's footage in the trailer, and also photographs. There's footage in the trailer of them standing in the cargo bay of one of those ships, and then in the behind the scenes footage, there actually is footage of the mouth of one of those vehicles with the front door open. So I was thrown off because that, to me, I would have a hard time explaining that away. So you're talking a couple decades later, the First Order, or you're talking about a couple decades earlier, and the Imperials, the Empire, had troop transports, exactly the same thing that the First Order had decades later, and we'd never seen them before. That one I had a hard time. I had a hard time believing. However, I noticed something. So I've got the Imperial cargo ship in my hand. The nose in the front, it's flat on, it's completely flat on top. So when you put the wings up, you got these four wings sticking up. And then when you put the wings down, like I said, it almost looks like a turtle. The four wings look like a sea turtle. The nose of it has a cargo door. Okay. And in the Black Series diecast that I have here in front of me that's sit on my desk, if you open up the front of the Imperial cargo ship, you will find that door, and I'm actually looking at it right now, that door looks an awful lot like the door from the First Order transports. So my guess is that they did repurpose the First Order transports for production purposes from The Force Awakens, but they're only using the interior shots and the cargo doors, and the rest of it will be will be built up via CGI with the rest of the Imperial cargo ship. If you remember in the trailer, they blow one of them up. There's one sitting on the ground in the original. Actually, I think it's in both trailers. There's one sitting on the ground that they blow up. So I could be wrong, but I just thought that was an interesting observation. When I turned it over, I went, "Oh, hey, that looks like the underbelly of a first order transport ship." So it's just a brief observation. All right, trailer is supposed to come out. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to put the I'm trying to put my transport back on the stand, and I'm going to give up. So, news dropped this week that the trailer would be coming out with Doctor Strange. Now, Doctor Strange comes out November 4th, so to get right to it, most people are speculating that we're going to get the Rogue One trailer sometime around the week of October 24th. Based off of when the film releases overseas, and if it's attached to Doctor Strange, and based off the fact that more than likely they're going to drop that trailer before it ends up in front of Doctor Strange. And if they're going to follow what they did with The Force Awakens, then you could conceivably eyeball Monday night, October 24th, if they were to go and attach it to Monday Night Football. So there you go. So sometime here in the next 3 weeks, we should get the full trailer for Rogue One. And I have no idea what to expect. I remember with the Force Awakens trailer, it really, in my opinion, was not what I expected, and in a good way. They're obviously going to have to do something, in my opinion, to separate this movie out from The Force Awakens. So my guess is it's going to be when they announce that they're going to release the trailer and we get a runtime for that trailer, my guess is that runtime is going to be long. And the reason it's going to be long is that the front part of that trailer will probably be some exposition establishing where it fits in the Star Wars timeline. Because I think a lot of people are still very confused who don't follow Star Wars like I do or like you do about when this movie and what time frame this movie actually goes and takes place. So that's my expectation. Apart from that, I think we'll get a little bit more of the storyline, a little bit more of what they're going to be up against, and I also think that we're going to find out a bit about the narrative style of this film. And the reason I say that is because Bob Iger came out to a recent stockholders meeting and made a comment that kind of made people uncomfortable. He didn't say anything really positive about Rogue One, but he did go and say that the movie had a very unique way of storytelling. That's all that he said. It was a very interesting way of storytelling. Along with that this week, we also got word of this younger woman whose name I don't have in front of me, but this younger woman who is going to be playing Jyn Erso's mom. But in actual age, she's younger than Jyn Erso. We know from one of the production photos that there's a stormtrooper, death trooper, holding a stormtrooper doll. And we know that they filmed that particular scene in Iceland. And this woman said that she filmed scenes in Iceland. So, the thought process goes like this. And what people have been talking about on podcasts this week is that we're going to see some kind of flashback. I don't think we're going to see a flashback. What I think we're going to see is the movie is going to start with Jyn Erso at a young age. I think that we are going to meet her mom, and there's going to be a bit of spoilers here, but it's just speculation on my part. I have no proof of this. Okay? We know from the trailer, the international trailer, that the rebellion tells her that they received the transmission that a test was a weapons test was imminent. That transmission came from Jyn Erso's father. Here's the spoiler warning in case you guys don't know this already. This has been talked about. But Mads Mikkelsen plays Jyn Erso's father in the film. He also was one of the individuals that cracked the code or figured out the one thing that the Death Star needed in order to fire its big cannon. And that he may feel bad about that, and that's why he went and leaked this information to the rebellion. Maybe he thought he was working on something that was energy-based and didn't realize what he had actually gone and made. Okay, so he feels bad. He sends the coded message to the rebellion to let him know, hey, this thing is evil and bad. You should really get these plans to go and take it down. Okay, I think the beginning part of the movie tells the story of Jyn Erso as a kid, how her dad got involved with the Empire, and more than likely, how her mom ends up dying, and that is part of what brings Jyn Erso to want to go on this mission. I think that part of her motivation is going to be her lack of love for the Empire based off of whatever happened to her mom that was probably at the hands of the Empire. So when you talk about the interesting storytelling, we're either going to have a lot of jump back and forth, right? Where the history is revealed over time, which is, of course, a possibility. You see, I can't really think of any movies at the top of my head that have done that. But, where you start off with the present time of the film, and then you kind of jump back to reveals as the movie goes on. So maybe at some point later on, we don't really know what Jyn's motivation is, but then we end up going back in time to find out, oh, she was gunned down by a bunch of death troopers. So when Bob Iger talks about the interesting storytelling, I think that interesting storytelling is going to be two parts of this film. One, the backstory of Jyn Erso and how her father came to be a major contributor to the Death Star and its creation. And two, Jyn's motivation for why she's going and doing what she's doing because of what happened with her mom. And here again is pure speculation on my part as well. And that is, most of the thought is that the characters in this film are not going to make it out alive, because then why didn't they show up later on? I'm sure there are storytelling techniques that they could absolutely use to go and explain why these characters are not in the next Star Wars film. That being said, I'm wondering if Jyn's life ends up reflecting her mother's life in some way, shape, or form, in which case, her mother sacrificed for a greater good, and maybe Jyn goes and does the same thing herself. Right? It could be a gladiator situation if you really get down to it. It could be a situation, and maybe that involved the reshoots. When you think of Gladiator and the motivation of Maximus because his family was murdered, and how he was okay to go and die because he wanted to get back to his family, it might be a similar situation with Jyn Erso, and she feels that she's going to go and meet back up with them and hang out with a bunch of midichlorians, drifting out in the Force. Who knows? But again, just to repeat myself, I think that storytelling that Bob Iger talked about is that there's going to be two big parts of this movie, whether or not they take place sort of, Jyn's young, Jyn's now old, we go on the adventure, or whether or not the story plays out and they jump back and forth remains to be seen. All I know is, man, I'm hyped for this movie. I'm really excited for it now, because those elements to me add that mystery that's lacking from this movie, based off the fact that it's not a saga film, based off the fact that there's no, Skywalker storyline that draws us in. Now there is a mystery behind this, and I really hope that this trailer they release ends up giving us that little nugget to sort of grab onto to take us all the way to December 16th. All right, one more quick news item, and then for those that are listening on the iTunes podcast, again, I will share with you a portion from the post-show podcast this week, and an interesting debate on what order our producer Sam should watch the films in. And feel free to email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com. I'll share with you a couple of emails here in just a moment. Talkshownerd@gmail.com, and let me know what order you think Sam should watch them. The intention, by the way, is this. I heard making StarWars.net do this, and so I'm basically... I had an idea of doing this already, but essentially it sounds like I'm stealing their idea. However, I'm going to do what they did. They had a new character on the show, or a new member of the show, who had never seen the Star Wars movies. She watched them, and then they went and interviewed her after every movie, and it's fantastic. If you haven't listened to it, go and listen to MakingStarWars.net. So we're going to do the same thing with Sam. Every time Sam watches the movie, we're going to interview her and ask her what she thought and get her thoughts on where the story is going. So the conversation that you'll hear in just a moment revolves around what order should she go and watch the films. So again, if you are listening on anything other than iTunes, be sure you download that so you can listen to it. One more quick item of note from Star Wars News Net. I'll do the emails, and then we'll get to that bonus part of the podcast. There's an interview up on StarWarsNews.net by one of the original designers on A New Hope. And you got to forgive me here because my computer's locking up and I don't see his first name here. Oh, hold on, it's scrolling up now. I know his last name, but here we go. Colin Cantwell, one of the most influential persons to work on Star Wars that not many people know about. An 84-year-old was, in fact, the lead starship designer for Star Wars and has drawn several original designs that include the Return of the Jedi A-Wing, the Imperial Star Destroyer, the TIE Fighter, and X-Wing Fighter. And